Dr. Ethan Walker was the kind of man people rarely noticed until they needed him. Every morning, at exactly 6:15 a.m., he'd walk into St. Mary's Community Hospital with a warm coffee in one hand and a quiet determination in his eyes. He wasn't famous, he wasn't rich, and he certainly wasn't the loudest voice in the room, but he was the doctor everyone trusted. Nurses said he listened like no one else. Patients said he cared like family. And strangers, well, strangers just felt safe around him. Yet kindness, as Ethan would soon learn, comes with a cost the world rarely warns you about. Ethan grew up in a small Midwestern town where people still waved at strangers and left their doors unlocked. It was the kind of place where community meant everything. His mother was a school teacher who always stayed late for struggling students. Her patience endless, but his father once told him, his hands stained with grease, but his smile genuine, even when no one is watching. Guided him through medical school, while others were laser-focused on competition, scrambling to get ahead. Ethan was focused on collaboration. He shared his meticulously organized notes with anyone who asked. He'd cover exhausting shifts for classmates who were burned out or had family emergencies, never asking for anything in return. He was the one who would step in and defend classmates who were being bullied or overlooked by professors, even if it meant drawing unwanted attention to himself. "Why do you care so much?" a friend once asked him, genuinely perplexed, as they sat in the nearly empty library late one night. Ethan had just spent 2 hours explaining a complex cardiac procedure to him, even though he had his own exam the next morning. Ethan looked up from his textbook, a small, tired smile on his face. "Because it's the right thing to do," he replied simply. "We're all in this together, right? Someone has to look out for everyone." His friend just shook his head, not quite understanding. To him, it was a race. To Ethan, it was a team effort. He carried that same ethos into his residency at St. Mary's. The hospital was underfunded and chaotic, a relentless storm of emergencies and heartbreak. Many young doctors burned out quickly, growing cynical and detached just to survive. But Ethan refused to let the pressure change him. He saw every patient not as a set of symptoms or a bed number, but as a person with a story, with fears, with a family waiting for news. He'd sit by the bedsides of elderly patients who had no visitors, just listening to their stories about the past. He'd spend his breaks explaining diagnoses to worried families in simple, compassionate terms, long after other doctors had moved on. The hospital staff started calling him the anchor. In the middle of a code blue, when panic was rising, Ethan's calm presence was the steadying force that held everyone together. He never raised his voice. He just moved with purpose, issuing clear instructions, his focus absolute. He remembered the name of every nurse, every janitor, every tech. He'd ask about their kids, their weekends, their worries of the hospital, even if he never realized it. Of everyone else's burdens, of their pain and their hope, began to settle on his shoulders. That determination in his eyes was slowly being replaced by a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. The man who listened to everyone had no one to talk to about his own struggles. He was the strong one, the one everyone leaned on. But even the strongest anchors can be pulled under by a relentless tide, and Ethan's tide was rising. The world had taught him how to be good, but it never taught him how to protect himself from the cost of that goodness. And a storm was coming that would test the very limits of his compassion, forcing him to face the one person he had been neglecting all along. Himself, Dr. Ethan Walker, in the chaotic, high-stakes environment of the emergency room. He was known for one simple rule. He'd never, ever turned anyone away. It didn't matter if you were an uninsured patient. He'd stay late, long after his shift ended, just to make sure you were okay. If you were a homeless veteran, he treated you with the respect and dignity of a hero. Even if you were a drug addict, relapsing for the 10th time, Ethan believed everyone deserved another chance. His colleagues, even the hospital administrators, would constantly warn him. "Ethan, you're going to burn out," they'd say. "You're crossing professional boundaries." The one he heard most often was, "You can't save everyone." But Ethan just didn't know how to stop caring. And that, unfortunately, was where all his trouble began. It all started on one particularly tense night. A man named Marcus was brought into the ER. He was agitated, injured, and seemed to be angry at the entire world. The hospital security team immediately flagged him as schmuckus, who immediately started yelling, making threats, and even cursing directly at him. But Ethan didn't flinch. He calmed down, received treatment, and left the hospital alive. But while Marcus left, something dark and unsettling stayed behind. A few weeks later, the anonymous messages started. They would pop up on his phone, cryptic and menacing. "You think you're better than us? You don't know who you're really helping." The most chilling one was a simple, direct threat. "You'll regret this." His friends and colleagues were deeply concerned. They urged him to report the messages to the police, to take them seriously. But Ethan, always seeing the good in people, just shrugged it off. "It's probably just someone who's struggling," he'd say, convinced it was a cry for help, not a genuine threat. That assumption would turn out to be the biggest mistake of his life. He couldn't imagine that his unwavering compassion was leading him down a path toward a confrontation that would test every fiber of his being. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday evening. The aura was absolute chaos. A symphony of screaming sirens, beeping machines, and the frantic footsteps of nurses rushing between beds. The waiting room was overflowing, and every single doctor was stretched to their limit. Suddenly, the automatic doors burst open with a violent whoosh. Standing there, soaked from the rain, was Marcus. But this wasn't the same Marcus from before. He was angrier, more desperate, and this time, he was armed. Pure, unadulterated panic swept through the room like a shockwave. Patients screamed. Security guards froze, unsure how to react to the sudden, terrifying escalation. The entire emergency department came to a standstill. And right in the middle of it all, Dr. Ethan Walker did what he always did. He stepped forward. He raised his hands slowly, palms open, showing he meant no harm. Nurses who were there that night would later recount the same incredible detail. Ethan's voice never shook, not for a single second. He wasn't trying to be a brave movie character. He was just trying to be a doctor. He was trying to be kind. First and only instinct was to help, to heal, to understand. He was living by the same code that had guided his entire career. Even when faced with the most dangerous situation he had ever encountered, he was Dr. Ethan Walker. What happened next lasted only a few seconds, but it changed lives forever. In a sudden, violent burst, Marcus lashed out. Instinctively, Dr. Ethan Walker shielded a nurse behind him, becoming a human barrier between danger and care. The sound of the attack echoed through the sterile hospital corridors, followed by a deafening, heavy silence. Then, Dr. Ethan Walker collapsed. Even Asafel's hand reached out, still trying to help, still trying to heal. He never made it to surgery. The hospital, a place of life, became a scene of profound loss. The news spread like a shockwave, first through the hospital staff, then across the city, and finally, around the world. The headlines were heartbreaking. "Beloved doctor, killed while protecting others." In the days that followed, an ocean of grief and gratitude washed over the hospital steps. Candles flickered in the dusk, each flame a small testament to a life that had burned so brightly. Patients, past and present, left handwritten letters filled with stories of his compassion. Veterans, whom he had treated with deep respect, stood in silent salute. Strangers, people who had never met him, but were touched by his story, openly wept. Amidst the countless tributes, one message, scrawled on a simple piece of cardboard, stood out. It read, "He was the first person who ever treated me like a human." This single sentence captured the essence of Dr. Walker. He didn't just see patients, saw people. He didn't just treat illnesses. He healed spirits with his unwavering kindness. Marcus was arrested, and the legal process began. But for the community, justice felt hollow. A conviction couldn't bring back the man whose life was a beacon of goodness. The real loss wasn't just a doctor. It was the kindness he embodied. A kindness that suddenly felt vulnerable and gone. But Ethan's story wasn't over. Weeks later, something unexpected and beautiful began to bloom from the tragedy. The hospital announced a change. Its free clinic, a place where Dr. Walker had spent countless volunteer hours, was being renamed. It would now be known as the Ethan Walker Compassion Wing. Inspired by his sacrifice, his colleagues, the other doctors and nurses started volunteering more of their own time. The hospital administration also took action, overhauling its security protocols. It was a clear acknowledgement that while compassion is a strength, it must be protected. Kindness became balanced with wisdom. At the dedication ceremony for the new wing, Ethan's mother stood before the crowd, her voice trembling but firm. "My son believed that kindness was the most important thing in the world," she said. "He lived it every single day, but his story teaches us a painful lesson. Now, let his legacy be not just about kindness, but about smart kindness. Kindness with awareness." Her words resonated deeply. It wasn't a call to be less kind, but a plea to be more mindful. The story of Dr. Ethan Walker is a powerful, complicated reminder. Kindness has the power to change lives, to heal wounds that medicine can't touch. But kindness, without boundaries, without an awareness of the world around us, can come at an unbearable cost. Dr. Walker didn't die because he was weak. He died because his deep, profound goodness collided with a complicated and sometimes broken world. He paid the ultimate price, not for a failing, but for his greatest virtue. His story compels us to look at our own lives. It asks us to be kind, to always choose compassion when we can. It asks us to be brave, to stand up for others, whose as a deed. But it also asks us to be aware, to protect ourselves so that we can continue to spread that kindness. We must be the shield for our own light, so it can continue to shine for others. If this story moved you, if it made you think, please take a moment to honor the memory of Dr. Ethan Walker by liking this video. Subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that inspire and make us reflect. And in the comments below, please write, "Kindness still matters." Because it does, now more than ever. Thank you for watching.